everybody. Oh, I'm by myself. I see. Oh, my flying
Are
solo today.
you?
There we go. Am I?
Are you?
Am I ever truly alone? Are any of us ever truly alone? Anyway, start coming in hot today on
That
this.
was it. That was to recreate the feeling of Omega being alone.
Yes, yeah, that's totally what I meant to do.
Yeah, that's what I did. That's what I did.
Thank you for having my back there, Maui.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right, hello. We are the Bad Batch recap show here on the Dope. I am Catherine. That is my co-pilot Maui. Yes, we did it. And we are here to recap Bad Batch episode 10 entitled Common Ground. How are you today, Maui? What was your general sense of this whole shebang?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed this episode. It was a smaller episode than the last few, but I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it, and I particularly enjoyed Omega's story in this. It's
Yes,
my
our
favorite
girl.
Omega storyline yet. So
Really? Okay. Cool,
yeah,
cool, cool.
yeah.
Well, on that note, let's just get into it, shall we?
Let's go. Let's do it.
Alrighty. So, we start in a new locale that I don't think we've seen since Clone Wars, I want to say.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I got
be,
excited because I thought it was Naboo.
I could
And
totally
then
see
very
why you'd say that.
quickly realized it was like, wait, these are not Naboo natives. Where are we?
Yeah.
And quickly figured out it was. I put it in our chat. Raxus.
Raxus, yeah. Specifically, Raxalon, the capital city. I thought it was Onderon at first because that arc in not Bad Batch, in Clone Wars where those guerrilla soldiers are like trying to take back the capital city. It kind of had that like same architecture with like the big like Capitol building with the square in front of it. I was like, oh, are we Onderon? Wait, no, that does not look like Onderon. So we got some clarity on that pretty early on. And we are confronted with Senator Avi Singh and his droid GS8 as the Empire, headed up by Captain Bragg, takes over Raxus. And Senator Avi Singh is forced to give a kind of concession speech, honestly, like saying that, you should follow their laws, and with under the Empire, Raxus will be better. And then he just can't follow through with it.
I love that scene.
I do too.
Yeah, I love that. I love this opening. I love, he starts doing the thing and stops and just he can't abide it. I really love that opening. I thought it was super cool.
Yeah, I mean, some of my favorite Star Wars moments, just generally, not just in Bad Batch, involve people personally taking responsibility for the environment in which they inhabit. Like that those like little, not even little, but like those personal moments of bravery where like they personally might pay a terrible price if they do this thing, but they're going to do it anyway. And we see it time and time again. Those are the moments I really, really admire.
Absolutely.
So Senator Singh gets captured by the Empire, and but before he gets captured, he tells his droid GS8, remember what I told you, follow my instructions. And GS8 manages to escape the commotion, take out a comm, and tell somebody that their GS8. I mean, just generally in Star Wars, we tend to call droids his master, like 3PO.
I felt this was a female.
She
coded.
sounded quite femme, and actually, that's something I want to get into later in this discussion, but not right now. So I'm going to call GS8 a her because we call the other droids him. So we're just gonna do that for our girl GS8. So GS8 calls somebody on the comm and says that her master has been taken and that she needs help, which is what brings us to the Bad Batch. They are coming back for another mission, and Omega has her Mentel mix, which is just so cute.
Hanging out at the bar, hanging out at Cheers with Carla.
Yeah, yep. With Carla. I love that so much. And we see this moment with Hunter where they're asking like, "Oh, what's our next mission?" And Hunter says that Omega needs a break, which like yeah, I kind of see where he's coming from. She
Hmm.
just got captured by not one but two bounty hunters, within the course of just the previous episode,
Yeah.
and managed to escape both. And it's like, hey, she's also a child. Like, maybe we should chill for a second.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
like,
I was shocked that I was a little surprised because it I didn't expect him to actually like react like that. We've seen him so often just kind of being okay having her come along and do things, and like
yeah,
to hear him say like, "Oh no, she needs a break." Like I was like, "Oh, okay, he's actually trying to be more responsible with her."
yeah,
We're actually seeing some learning, some growth. That makes me
right.
happy.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes here. He's trying to do the dad thing,
Yeah.
but it's interesting because I think there are moments in this episode where the way that those decisions that Hunter is making are framed, they kind of make it seem like it's a bad thing. But like again, I kind of get where he's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of get where he's coming from too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ultimately I felt like it was the right decision for
Right.
all
Oh
parties
yeah,
involved.
for sure. For especially now. Maybe not, maybe not let Omega lay low forever because clearly she's not willing to do that.
Yeah.
But, at least while there are two bounty hunters on one's trail, maybe one should be a little more careful.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the Bad Batch enter the bar, and Sid pretty much right away tells them that there's another job for them, that a separatist senator needs to be extracted from little bit of trouble he's in. And immediately, Hunter starts the conversation that he's not going to help a separatist, which
Hmm.
like brings me to my first question. Does it make sense for the Bad Batch as a group, maybe not individually, but as a group, to be still hung up on their client being a separatist? Because, like, the war is over. Separatists are technically no longer a thing because they're all under the Empire now. So, like, who cares? And I didn't really get this more to the point. I didn't really get the sense that the Bad Batch is really into the political side of things. I could see one exception to this, and I think we both know who I'm about to talk about, but maybe for the other Bad Batch members, maybe it doesn't make sense for them to still be hung about this. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's all they've ever known. So I think they have a lot of preconceived notions about separatists.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it felt like a hardcore like conservative, being asked to like go save a liberal, or a hardcore liberal being asked to save a conservative, right? They're like, "Oh, I'm not doing that." It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's not racist, but like it feels like that, like you know, it feels like that, that reductive, like, oh, like this person has no value to me. Like, why would I want to go
Right.
save that person? Like they suck, you know. I found it very interesting to see them actually have to think about that and reconcile with it, because yeah, like everything went to shit for them, and what their position was, but it didn't necessarily change their core like political beliefs. And so it's interesting to see that like the clones do have actually formed like political opinions.
Yeah. 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 And I wonder if, because I mean, at least what we saw in Clone Wars season 7, most of what they've faced so far as a unit has been droids.
Hmm.
So I don't think they've ever experienced um dealing with a separatist person, or non-droid rather.
Right.
Which you can kind of argue that either way, where, because they've never met with a separatist in the flesh before, they, like if you've never met someone of a different race or a different ethnicity, like you don't know like what to think of them, because like you don't have anything to go on. You can just stereotype all you want because you don't have anything to go on. Um, what was the other way I was going to argue that? I think I just talked myself into a corner here. Well, there you go.
Well, yeah, I
um,
mean, yes, but
oh yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say, like, but the other side of that could be like, because they've never encountered a separatist, especially like on the field of battle, um they have nothing against those people because they didn't do anything to them. You know, they didn't see like any of their brothers die because of like an actual separatist like wielding a weapon.
Not necessarily, but I mean, I think if we apply this like these same things to like real world stuff, right? It's not like these conservatives, have ever like been wronged by a liberal necessarily, but they're being told all the time.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
okay.
When the rhetoric all the time is like, these people are the reason that your life sucks. They're the problem. They're the problem, and they have that in their head. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I like I said, I think it's just like ignorance. It's like I hate this person because I've been told my entire life to hate this person.
Yeah, but again, I kind of got the sense of the Bad Batch. There's like, hey, we're going in, we're gonna do the job, we're gonna do it well, and then we're gonna get out and do the next thing. Like they didn't like, like take Rex for example.
Mm-hmm.
He is all about like keeping his brothers together and keeping them around. Like he is actually about the Republic and about the cause and his men. Whereas the
Yeah.
Bad Batch are like, hey, we're here to do a job, and we're badass, and we'll do it. You know what I mean? They don't seem to be like that entrenched with like the ideology of the war.
Well, I think, but yes, I agree that that's what we've seen thus far, but we haven't seen them in much of a situation to have to actually like reconcile with that. I feel like this is the first time we've actually seen them have to decide like what to do about helping out someone that used to be on the other side.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not saying that the way that the show has portrayed this is wrong or bad. I'm just saying this is just not something that we've really had to think about before vis-a-vis the Bad Batch.
Yeah, 100%, and it's super, it was kind of jarring to see them like kind of revert back to what you would assume would be like their old ways, like, oh, a separatist, gross, like it's super weird. Hi,
Well,
mama.
again, and up until this
Hold on, I have to
point,
stop and say hi to my mom. Hi, mama. I
hi, how
love
are
you.
you? But up until this point, they've been these I won't say flawless because all these characters have flaws, but they've been these fairly upstanding, hero type characters. When we never seen them like have to, stereotype or devalue someone's life just because of the particular side they happen to be aligned with, which is a cool moment to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was weird to see him like throw back like, no, I'm not doing that, and then
Right.
are saying like, you still owe a debt. Yes, you are. And he's
Yeah.
trying to find reasons not to do it. It's
Right.
pretty funny to watch how
Right.
like still powerless they really are. Like it feels like he doesn't have much of a say even still in what they do and don't do.
Yeah. I mentioned a minute or two ago that there was one member of the Bad Batch where it makes total sense for them to harbor ill will towards a former separatist, and that would be Echo. And
Yes.
I think they did that pretty well, with him really showing his discomfort multiple times that he does not want to do this because Echo has seen some shit at the hands of the separatists, like way more than anyone should ever have to. I mean, he literally died for like 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Died, in air quotes. And then was, hooked up to like their, I don't know, motherboard. I don't really know like how you could say that. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the details of it. I don't remember. But, he was basically feeding them information against his will, using him as a human computer, which is why he is the way he is. So yeah, has suffered mental torture, physical torture at the hands of separatists. Like, yeah, Kim, totally get it. Yeah, you're good, dude. Like, I don't
major PTSD,
major trauma, major PTSD, absolutely. Yeah. But here's what's interesting is that because Echo was the one, I mean, so Hunter was the first person to show discomfort with this idea, but Echo was the one that kind of kept it going 3 or 4 times throughout at least the first half of this episode. And when we first saw Echo be like, yo, I'm not comfortable doing this, I thought that this was going to be an Echo-centric episode because of his particular history with the separatists. And that's not what ended up happening, is it?
No, it wasn't really centric to any of the Bad Batch. You just saw them running a mission, which I thought was weird. Like I think I would have preferred to see a little bit more of this through specifically Echo's POV.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Like, should this episode have been focused on one character? And it didn't necessarily have to be Echo, because obviously Hunter, as usual, got a big chunk of the screen time. Um, Tech did a lot more, I think, this episode than we've seen him do, and that's something else I want to touch on. But yeah, Echo seemed to me like the natural choice to be like the point of view for this particular episode.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Yeah,
haven't
I would
gotten a
agree.
lot of that. We got a
No.
ton of Hunter character development. We've got a ton of Wrecker character development. A little bit of Tech, especially in that scene with Omega that we were talking about a couple episodes ago, where we kind of
Mm-hmm.
got his his way of thinking about things. But Echo has been kind of quiet, and I think that might partially be because we've had more time with him because he is a OG Clone Wars character. We
Yeah.
haven't gotten to see a lot of how he's developed, and I really wish that that's something they would go into.
I feel like this show, I'm realizing that this show it's really Omega's
Yeah,
show.
for sure.
And so the Bad Batch members that we get the most characterization with are the people that she is closest with. So we get a lot of Wrecker and we get a lot of Hunter because those are the people that she interfaces with the most.
I like that idea. Yeah, and I feel like that makes sense because you I'm sure you've heard of the phenomenon of like the audience insert character. Like this is the person for whom like we're supposed to see the world through their eyes, maybe because they're an outsider, and so everything has to be explained to them, and therefore it's explained to us, the audience. But more than that, I feel like Omega is the audience insert character for the Bad Batch. Yeah, she's kind of an outsider, because she's a little kid and things have to be explained to her, and again, and therefore us, the audience. But it's also like most of us don't have like the ninja skills of Hunter or the intelligence and the tech knowledge of Tech or the strength of Wrecker. So like
I have all of those things. It's fine.
Yes, you do. You are superhuman. But most of us mere mortals are not able to do those things. And so we see ourselves more through Omega, kind of learning her way through this, touch and go, battle heavy lifestyle and kind of finding her niche in there as well.
Yeah. Fun fact, I'm internationally known for my ninja skills.
Wonderful. You'll have to give us demonstrations sometime.
Only regionally known for my tech skills. That's fine.
Okay. Well,
I'm getting there.
You just went down. You just went down a step in my esteem.
I'm aware we're works in progress. It's fine. Yeah. I think, and I feel like this is the episode where we see Omega like find her thing, which is cool.
Yeah.
I really like this episode.
I know there's a lot to say in this, and actually that kind of dovetails into the next thing I wanted to talk about. And I think this episode is going to go a little less like point by point and more just like talking about the thing as a whole. There's a lot this episode has to say about someone's worth, I think, especially the non-macho, non-super mask, non-necessarily physically strong characters, by which I mean Omega, obviously, GS8, and Tech. Because all three of those characters, despite not being like, again, your typical like, guns ablazing superhero, super mask type characters, they all contribute to the success of this team in their own way, despite not being your stereotypical like super punchy action characters. Let's take Omega first, because obviously she's the focus here. Yes, she does her part with showing off her tactical skills and the game, but she also negotiates her cut with Sid.
I loved that detail.
I did too.
Sid said 30%,
and
then she countered with 60.
Yeah, and Sid she didn't say anything after that, at least not that we could see.
So I think that she like got the upper hand in that and got the lion's share of it, and
totally
40%. Which means like she not only paid off their debt, she also made them a buttload of money. Which again will not just help them get out of Sid's, under Sid's heel, but will help them tremendously in the future. Because it sounded like they owed her a fairly decent amount of money. And so if 60% can pay off the debt, then I'm sure there's some left over there. So do we think that they are done with Sid now?
I don't think they're done with Sid because they yes, Sid is a realist and doesn't really have ties to really anybody except for people that can make her money. But as long as they're successful and as long as they're getting along, because now she sees Omega's worth too.
Mhm.
Because at first she called her helpless, and then she's like, "Wait a minute, this kid's got some skills."
Well,
Um,
by the way, when she calls her helpless, like Norm and Cliff, where I'm calling the two aliens that we don't know their names. I think they just call them like tall alien and something other
yeah,
alien.
I don't remember. That's
Um,
hilarious.
but I'm just calling them Norm and Cliff because I'm just thinking of this as like
I love
Cheers
that. I love
in
that.
Star Wars. When she calls her helpless and Omega goes off to a corner to sulk, they look at her. They look at Sid like,
Yeah, like,
Carla,
dude,
what are you doing?
that was so uncool.
Right, be nice to Diane, like you know, you went too far this time, and that's when Sid's like, hey, and goes to try and like, make up a little bit. I really find this dynamic interesting, and I actually hope that they do stay with Sid because I like the bar as their kind of home base
Yeah.
and like this like ragtag cast of barflies that kind of hang out there that like are obviously like growing attached to them as being part of like their little bar family. Like I
Yeah.
kind of love that.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Yeah, and again, it's mutually beneficial. The
Hmm.
Bad Batch, they can do their thing, and Sid, gets paid.
Yeah,
Everybody wins, I feel like.
yeah. So are we just going to talk about like all of Omega's arc in this moment?
Yeah, sure, we can go for it.
Okay, so I always forget what is the name of that game that they play. Do you
Hollow
remember?
chess?
Hollow chess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really like how like she's like sitting there. She's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you, and says like,
Hmm.
shut up, and then Sid loses. Like, okay, well, what would you do?
Yeah.
And then she, goes over and does the thing, and I really found that interesting. How I don't even know that Omega's ever even played that game,
Right.
but she's just watched people play it and figured out not only the moves but how to be successful in said game,
Sure.
which looks to make no sense. If I'm honest, like I don't understand this game at all. It doesn't seem to make any sense. You punch a bunch of buttons and the characters do something that I can't see the connection between what you're inputting on those buttons and what the characters do. I
Right.
don't know that if there's any rhyme or reason to this game, but I really, really enjoy how we see this setup happen, and and then the satisfaction of the end of this arc when they get back, and Hunter tries to get all like dad mode, and Sid's like, "Dude, she just did what you couldn't, and close and like paid back all of your debt."
Right.
And then even goes even further. So don't talk like that to my friend.
Yes. Yes. I
Made
noticed
me
that
so
too.
happy. I love the validation that Omega gets in this episode, and it
For
didn't
sure.
feel, even though like it came out of nowhere, it didn't feel like it came out of nowhere. I just really just enjoyed this storyline. I could
Well,
totally
also
buy that she's super smart and can just pick stuff up like that.
Well, also like the way that when the Bad Batch comes back and they see Omega playing Hollow Chess with Sid, it's like Sid, the way that Sid and Omega are sitting together, like they're so buddy buddy. It's almost like the
Mm-hmm.
way Omega was like riding Wrecker's shoulder at the beginning. Like they're like hanging, they're having a grand old time, and you know what? I
Yep.
love that for them.
Yeah, and I love that like while, dad is super dour, mom, which I'm calling Wrecker, is like, yeah, kid, like, fuck yeah,
How'd
take
you
all this
learn to
money.
do that? Yeah,
Yeah, he's
and
just happy, supportive.
And the little detail, like when Hunter like berates her for not keeping a low profile, Wrecker passes him and kind of like shoves his shoulder into him, like you're a jerk. I'm mad at you
Yeah.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love that. And I also want to I also want to point out that this arc with Omega being good at strategy and hollow chess and all that kind of is a parallel to how not good she was at the steampunk bow and arrow thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like she tried something and it didn't work for her, and that's okay because now she's good at this other thing that does work for her. And
Yeah.
it's fine that you're not good at everything.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think went so like so at the end when Hunter and Omega sit down for for the hollow chess match? What are the stakes if Hunter loses, then she never gets left behind
Right.
on the mission ever again. I don't remember what happens if he wins.
They
Then she
don't they,
doesn't.
they leave it undefined. Which
Yeah.
I feel like early in the next episode we're gonna get like a well, it's not my fault you lost at Hollow Chess. Like,
Well,
yeah, I
that's
feel
what
like
I'm wondering. Like, do you
yeah,
think that Hunter lost? Do you think he loses?
yeah. I definitely think he loses.
Because
For
his
sure.
thing is also strategy.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
he is the tactician of the group. So I'm curious, is is she better at that than him? And I think as she trains, because I think that we have seen her actually get better with that crossbow thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think when she
Yeah, she can get
trains up,
better.
she's probably going to get. I wonder if she's like going to be like as good as all of them combined, right? Like she like is the best of all of them. Like they're one particular thing dialed up, and I wonder if like her and Boba are just like the best possible, you know, uh permutation of Jango Fett. Like Jango
Sure.
Fett's good at all of these things. All the beta clones are like so at it.
And
The
the beta
Bad Batch are
clones.
specialized at like they can do one thing that he could do well, whereas Alpha and Omega are perfect copies, so they can do everything that he does, and so
That's
they're
one way of
just good
looking at it.
across the board. Like I'm curious if that's kind of what they're hinting at.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if either Boba or Omega will be like a record type. I don't know if that's necessarily in the cards, but yeah, I think they could at least get
Did you not see
elements.
what Boba did in Mandalorian to all those
That's
stormtroopers?
true.
I've
Okay.
never seen
Okay.
stormtroopers brutalized like that, just
He
like
did
exploding
really.
their armor with those gaffy stick hits. Like we were
That's
insane.
true. He did really rough them up, didn't
I
he?
love that scene
That's
so
a
much.
great scene. I love it too.
Only, and you could tell it was Robert Rodriguez. Like if you've watched any Robert Rodriguez movies, like, oh yeah, this is definitely the guy that did Desperado. Yeah.
I'm not familiar, but I'll take your word for that one.
You should watch Desperado.
Okay. Cool.
Mike says Omega is the Captain Planet of the Bad Batch.
I love that. That's amazing. But to keep going with the idea that this episode kind of celebrated the talents of the not so macho, not so mask characters. GS8 even had her moments where, at first she was kind of like the hapless, super proper C3PO foil character in this episode. But she has her moments. She leads the troopers from the door, outside, and then she kind of like fakes being lost on the inside. She's kind of
like,
badass in her own
she's
way.
like, I think I understand this now.
Yeah. And Hunter's like, wait, no.
Yeah,
But she
I
just
like that.
keeps going. I loved that. And she saves the vase for a while.
Yes. That was Chekhov's vase. Like you knew it needed to break eventually.
Right. Just a matter of in what capacity.
Like the second she saved, I was like, it's not going to last the entire episode, but it will be significant when it breaks.
Right.
And I didn't know how it would do it, and I loved how they did that.
Yeah, and Senator Sing's like, I didn't really like it anyway.
It was also a really good punchline setup too.
Yeah, very well done. Very good setup. And I think Tech even, again, speaking of those non-punchy main characters, Tech did more in this episode than I think we're used to him seeing. Usually we'll have him like, okay, here's the plan and like yada yada yada. But he saw the heat signals of the troopers inside the compound. He was able to open the doors, and most importantly, near the end, he was able to repair the ATTE that they were commandeering. So it's like Tech did his part here. So again, this whole episode seemed to celebrate, differing abilities. It wasn't just like your typical action sequence, and that's something I really appreciated.
Yes, and I also particularly appreciate that we got to see the batch working in like that kind of perfect harmony that they do, like when like they're on a mission together. they have this like shorthand, this economy of language. They don't need to say much. They know each other's rhythms so well. If they say we're going to take this thing down, they all know exactly what to do
Right.
and when to do it, and it just works beautifully in concert with with each other. I
Totally.
love that. That was my favorite thing about the pilot, was seeing them all kind of do their thing, and how like when all of them work together, they are just like an unstoppable force and can take out like 10 times the amount of people they're actually fighting.
Yeah.
So I really wish, if they had Crosshair, like
I
they'd be unstoppable.
know.
You
It's funny
know,
because you and I, we save our best takes for this show, but we'll
yeah,
go over like, our main takes on things when we chat. And it's funny because the word I think I used when I captured my general feelings about this one is that it felt nostalgic, which
mm,
when I think about it is a weird choice of words because we've only known these characters for a little over a year now.
yeah,
The Clone Wars season 7 I think ended May 4th of 2020. So it started like maybe in the spring, I would say, like early spring, February,
yeah,
March. Um and so we've only known these characters since February or March, and there was only 4 episodes to begin with. And then we've known them for, these past 10 weeks or so. So there's nothing like nostalgia to really work off. It's not like we've known these characters for like 5, 10, 20 years, like a lot of other Star Wars characters. But at the same time, there was something so classic about the way they all worked together, both in Clone Wars season 7 at the beginning of this season as well. That was just like, yay, we get to see like the Bad Batch in their true form, doing the
hmm
things, checking off the check marks. Everyone has their role, and they just go in there and they kick ass. And there was just something so satisfying about that.
yeah, yeah. I love that because it also, when they do that, it's not just prioritizing the brute force, which
Right.
it's showing that like all of these different things that people can do have value, and when they work together, they're greater than the sum of their, than the sum of their parts, right? So it's really cool to see them all kind of doing the thing in unison. I love when they do that, and I feel like they don't do it enough. Like I would be happy with a sequence like this every episode.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I love that.
Hmm
There's just something so I mean, I use the word satisfying. I'm gonna do it again. There's something so satisfying about it.
Yeah.
Um there's something I want to point out, and this is probably just a nerdy ass Star Wars thing, but one other thing I really liked about this episode is how it joined the original trilogy style with a lot of stuff from the prequels. And what I mean by that is more kind of the general feel and like the tactics of this episode. So for example, um, a lot of Raxus scenes, especially when they're kind of sneaking around, reminds me of both instances where there are battles on Naboo in Phantom Menace. At
hmm
first when when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are sneaking around, like trying to locate and extract Queen Amidala and her crew at the beginning of Phantom Menace, and then kind of at the end where they're in the palace and they're looking for Newt Gunray to to capture him at the end there. So I don't know. There's a lot of that reminded me of that. And then on the original trilogy side, I mean, there are a couple of moments that reminded me of the tactics used in A New Hope and in Return of the Jedi, like that point outside the Senator Singh's residence where GS8 lured the troopers away, and then you see them off camera, and then you hear like them getting beat up off camera. That reminds me of when the Millennium Falcon first lands on the Death Star, and you
hmm
hear Han, call onto those troopers like, "Hey, down there, can you give us a hand with this?" And the troopers go up into the Millennium Falcon. You hear like the laser blasts. I was like, "Oh, that's kind of a cute little like callback to a moment like that." And then, of course, them taking
hmm
over the ATTE reminds me of Chewie taking over the ATST on Endor. So like
hmm
I don't know, there are a couple of little like details like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. They're merging, you know.
No, did you notice they only used stun settings?
Yes, I did.
They
Yes, I
didn't
did
kill
notice that.
anyone on their mission, which
Yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate.
They're
I
like
think the
Batman.
Empire might have killed some of their own people
Oh, for sure. They don't
in
care.
that, where they were like shooting at their own, vehicles and whatnot. I was like, oh, that's pretty savage.
Well, yeah, because it's clone on clone. I mean, we haven't seen that before where you know, they don't want to take down their brothers, even if these guys have, flipped the chip and gone to Order 66.
Flip the chip. I like
Flip
that.
the chip.
Mike says, "Yeah, this whole episode was satisfying. It feels like Filoni and the writers learned from the issues with some of the previous episodes. This was definitely one of the best eps to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And that's like the growing pains of any new show, right? Like, as you find the rhythm, because it's not it's not the Clone Wars, right? They do have to like figure out like what's the story they're trying to tell here.
totally.
And generally speaking, when I watch a new show, I give it a few episodes to find its footing. And I feel like this one started off strong, but it's definitely finding its footing. I'm really curious to see where it goes. It was interesting also to see, as they didn't do it so much with just kind of saying what they were feeling, but you could see them gaining respect for Singh and GS8 throughout the course of the episode. I don't think Wrecker ever really cared one way or the other. I think, like, honestly, like, I don't even know if Tech really cared. It seemed more was Hunter and Echo's hang up, but you could see them gaining respect for them throughout the course of the episode. And I really appreciated that.
Well, especially with Wrecker. Wrecker doesn't really give a shit as long as he gets to blow something up. Like, that's just kind of his thing. And it's actually really funny. I wrote in my notes here, where is it? I feel happy for Wrecker. He hasn't gotten to blow things up in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Real talk.
So he's just like, hey, the man gets to do what makes him happy. So I'm happy for him. Yeah. And Tech, again, doesn't really process things on that emotional level the way that a lot of other people do.
Right.
So yeah, I think that makes sense. Well, let's talk.
It's funny that so when we had the realization about Tech a couple weeks ago, the other day, one of our mutual friends posted something about the show Bones and how much he hates the actual the titular character. Like, doesn't like Bones. He finds her rude and distasteful. And I was just like, no, she's not rude. She's just she just kind of processes things differently, and she like has she's very blunt and to the point, because I do think they coded her on that show to be somewhere on that spectrum. And when she says, like, to someone, like, I don't know what that means, she's not saying it to be mean. She's literally saying, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't get the reference. Yeah. But that's just what she says. That's just kind of how she says it. And you can hear it in everything that she says. And so when I was thinking about that, I was like, yeah, like, this definitely feels to me like he's coded like a character on the spectrum. They just haven't like explicitly said it,
Well, yeah, because as far as we know, that's not necessarily a thing in the Star Wars universe. And that could be something that they introduce in their own galactic way. But we don't have the language for that right now.
Right. Like, yeah, we don't know what like I said, like, just looking at the social cues and like in everything, like I can tell, like, in our language, we would say that, oh, this person is somewhere on the spectrum, maybe like some form of Asperger's or something like that. But we don't know what their terminology would be in this world. One would assume that they do have language for that. They are an advanced civilization with advanced medicines and things like that. I'm sure that they do have some sort of language to describe those things. We just don't have access to that information.
And it's interesting because I'm sure Tech was brought up in the same environment as all other clones, because he's still in what was in the Army of the Galactic Republic. Even just as Clone Force 99. So what my point is that it kind of, in this, at least as the way that the spectrum is portrayed in the Star Wars universe, it kind of takes care of like the whole nature versus nurture thing, because that is it has nothing to do with like, his upbringing or what. It's just a part of him, whatever went haywire in his genetic code when Tech became the Tech that we know and love. That whole thing was wired into it as well.
And that's okay.
No, it's nothing. There's
right.
Nothing
and
good
like,
about
and
it.
That's the thing. Like, I sometimes, like, I kind of feel bad about like my characterization, like my thoughts on his characterization in the first few episodes, because, well, you think about it, like, if you are a person that processes the world in a similar way and you hear people devaluing that, I just think we should be kind of careful about how we dismiss things like as a people, as a society, like just in general. And I think that it's when we're talking about representation in media, there are probably people out there that like really identify with this character. Yes, like a character that doesn't pick up on social cues like me. That's so important. There's a
Mm-hmm.
YouTuber, a couple YouTubers I follow. One is wonderful trans YouTuber, Jesse Gender, who has a lot of trouble like processing emotions, and
Mm.
because of that, super identifies with characters like that, like mostly Spock for
Mm.
her, and and she does a lot of coverage on like neurodivergence in fictional media, and I
Yeah.
think that's super cool. So I really love that there's a character that represents that in the
Yeah.
Bad Batch.
Yeah, I read about an autistic person who really identified with Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy because like he didn't
Mm.
get like certain turns of phrases that he took them quite literally, which certain people who are on the spectrum that's they don't get that that's just like a turn of phrase.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I would say in yours and my defense, we were just kind of going off of the evidence that we were shown up until that point. Like Tech really did not get a lot of character development until quite recently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why we were like, what is with this Tech guy and why does he not connect with anybody ever? And he like doesn't seem to
Yeah.
like really care. So like, and again, these are not real people. We're only able to see the things that we are shown. It's not like we could have
Mm-hmm.
like lived with Tech and like, oh, see his way of thinking just by, other moments. We're only get to see what we can see. So we can only
Mm-hmm.
see like, hey, maybe Tech is, our stand-in for an autistic character in the Star Wars universe. Um, Based on what Dave Filoni and crew decide to show us. So like, don't
Yeah.
feel too bad about it.
Yeah. Fair. Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else you got for me?
So you talked about, where this, you're curious to see where this goes in the future. And I want to talk about where this goes in the future specifically because we did not get any sight nor cameo nor nothing of Crosshair. And we are on episode 10. So there are 6 more to go. And it's feeling more and more to me like we're not going to get any closure, if at all, with Crosshair until the very end. Like I could have seen maybe before now, like, hey, maybe we'll get like a Crosshair redemption in like the second or third to last episode, and then the final couple episodes would be like them taking on Lama Su or whatever it happens to be. But it's looking more and more like we're kind of running out of time for that. Where do you think this is going to
Yeah.
go vis-a-vis Crosshair?
I think we'll probably get one more Crosshair centric episode like
Only
before
one?
the finale. Well,
Oh,
before
okay.
the finale, which will definitely have Crosshair. Like I'm sure like the last like two or three episodes, I would assume we'll have heavy Crosshair and Lamasu and everybody in the final arc.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, I think we'll probably get one more episode that really focuses on what Crosshair is up to, back with the Empire. Uh, if I were the writer, I would say like we need to have one more like Crosshair centric episode so that the audience doesn't forget that he exists, so the audience stays connected to him. I think that's
Yeah.
really important, because it doesn't feel very balanced right now. I feel like we're really not getting much at all of Crosshair, and as far as I can tell, I'm not seeing any particular conflict for the character because he's just like a robot at this point.
Right.
And maybe that's why they're not focusing on him very much, because there's just no way to like have like you know uh no way to have him generate conflict. There doesn't seem to be any internal struggle.
Mm-hmm.
um and with that character, I would assume you would want to see him struggling against the programming, trying to break from it, but they have
Totally.
done zero hint of that throughout the
Right.
show. It seemed like he really wanted to give in to the programming.
Right.
And if that's the case, and maybe that's the story they need to tell with Crosshair, like they say, like maybe establish like the chip just made it easier for me to do what had to be done.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, and here's where we get into the paradox of redeeming bad characters, because Crosshair has done some pretty notorious shit so far. He has turned on. I mean, and again, it's not his fault. We can go through all that, but like, we can't deny that he has perpetrated some bad things. You know, he's turned on his brothers. He has executed, you know, his subordinates that have dared to question him. He has killed, you know, non-combatant innocents. You know, like, he's done some bad things. And so, you know, when you have a character that's done things that are that bad, you know, there's a discussion to be had about whether or not it's responsible to redeem them, and all of a sudden, like, all that stuff is forgotten because you're good now, like, you're on our side, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why in the sequel trilogy, Kylo Ren could never have had a full integration back into the Republic and society, because he at the very least would have to be in prison somewhere, because again, he's done some really bad stuff. Like, he was never going to be able to, like, have his, you know, Ewok party and Return of the Jedi moment, because even if he was to come back with Rey, like, he would have to be punished somehow. So that leaves me wondering, like, where are we going to leave Crosshair? And it kind of makes me feel like Crosshair has to die, a la Kylo Ren.
I don't know. I don't think Crosshair's done anything nearly as bad as Kylo Ren or Darth Vader.
But,
like, Kylo Ren, like, shot a thing that, like, killed, like, a star system worth of people, like, killed, like, multiple planets, and, like, right. And Vader was complicit in the destruction of Alderaan. Like, so, like, I get why, like, they had to kill us off those characters. I personally think that that's kind of a coward's route out for the writers. Like, oh, we're just gonna kill them off. Yeah, a little hot take right here. You know, for me, the more interesting story is seeing them take responsibility for their actions. And, you know, I think that's an interesting thing to explore and see how you do that. You know, do they dedicate themselves to a life of like protecting people?
Yeah.
From there, and say, like, I realized that, like, I'm never going to get accolades, so I'm just going to mask up and be completely anonymous and be a lone wolf, like, just traveling the galaxy, setting right what once went wrong. You know, I think would be interesting. Or even being like, okay, I did the thing, but then you see them get arrested for war crimes. You know, like, have that play out. Like, don't let them take the cowards right out and die. Like, have them, like, take responsibility for the actions that they did. You know, Vader. You know, it's a great scene, and, like, you instantly, like, you get sucked in. You're like, oh, Vader saved Luke, so now I love Vader. Now, like, no, right. Vader did a lot of terrible stuff that we probably shouldn't be saying. That dude killed younglings.
Well, we didn't know that when Return of the Jedi came out, but, like, yeah, like,
we damn sure know it now, though.
Yeah, we sure do. We sure as hell do.
You know.
Yeah. Not to argue against myself, but now that I think about it, a lot of the marketing for Bad Batch has shown the whole team, Crosshair included. So it makes me think that maybe he's not going to die. And so I think maybe if Crosshair is not supposed to die, then maybe the route is Crosshair gets redeemed, removing the chip or overcoming it or what. They join some proto-Rebel alliance, but they're like, hey, we can't trust this guy because look what he did to all these other people. And Crosshair has to have this longer reintegration process to kind of bring his character back, because again, he also wasn't the most warm and fuzzy person even before Order 66, right? So maybe we have to get, like, a massive multi-episode character development arc for Crosshair, also to make up for lost time that we haven't spent with him this season.
If they, you know, get the chip deactivated and he actually wants to work with them and doesn't want to work with the Empire, in that case, then I think he has an easier path to redemption, because he didn't have agency in the situation. That doesn't necessarily change the guilt factor if you remember all of the things that you did.
Sure.
You know, that's so, you know, like Bucky in the MCU, you know, as we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, even though he didn't have agency over his actions, he still feels responsible for them and still feels the need to repair, to provide some sort of reparation to the people that now have these people-shaped voids in their life due to his actions. Yeah. Regardless of whether or not he had control over them. So I think that would be interesting if that's the route they go. I think the more interesting route for me narratively is if they turn off the chip and he's like, no, like I still agree with the Empire. I still believe that these people need order. I think that is shocking, because then there's a true break, and then they have to deal with the fact that, like, no, their brother just believes in this mission. If they turn off the chip and he's like, no, like the universe needs order, and the Empire is the best equipped to do that. The chip just made it easier for me to do what I had to do. And, it made it easier for me to not care about all of you, because I do care about y'all, but you're against the mission, and good soldiers follow orders. And that's why it was so easy for me to go to that, as opposed to the rest of you who resisted the chip, is because I actually want this.
That is so interesting, because I feel like that would almost be a break that could not be mended again.
I don't think it would be.
Especially with Hunter and Echo still being kind of like quasi loyal to the Republic, based on how they reacted to the whole separatist thing this time. That'd be so interesting. Ooh,
that'd be super interesting.
Lots of possibilities here.
Yeah,
for sure.
One last point. Rate? Oh yeah.
One last point to touch on before we rate. This was the first episode in a while that we haven't had the character reveal moment. We we re-meet a character that we know previously. Did you miss that, or was it nice to get kind of a break from that?
Didn't realize it until you said it right at this second.
Well, there you go.
Like literally, like I was not even in my head until you mentioned it. It's like, oh yeah, what about that?
Well, there you go. I guess that answers that question. Yeah, no, it's actually kind of funny. I feel like either I'm contradicting myself, or I'm learning more about my relationship to Star Wars. When I first watched Clone Wars and Rebels, I more appreciated the episodes where we were with characters that we're more familiar with, whether they were main characters like Obi-Wan and Anakin in Clone Wars, or there were more cameo, like single or 2 episode arcs, like when Leia showed up in Rebels for an episode or 2. Because I'm like, oh, these are characters that I already have a rapport with. Like, I already know what they're up to. I care about them more because I'm more familiar with them. But I think we've had so much of it in Bad Batch that it was nice to get some new faces in this one. And again, like there are times, like especially in the Ranker episode, where I felt like bringing characters back was done a little irresponsibly. So it was nice to be like, okay, we're clean slate, new planet, new people, new issues. Let's go.
Just give me Norman, Cliff, and LeBar every week, and I'm fine. Just give me a scene with them, like doing something, like have like the Norm analog alien come in and say some funny one-liner that means "give me a beer,"
right?
And I'm happy. That's all I need.
Yeah. Now, again, not to contradict myself again, but I was rewatching some Clone Wars episodes this week, and I came across one of my favorite Clone Wars characters, Mr. Hondo Ohnaka, who, like, if he came up in a future Bad Batch episode, I will probably die, because I love him so much. So, like, please, we already spoke Cad Bane into existence. Let's put Hondo Ohnaka into existence.
Yes, please. I love the fact that no Clone Wars characters showed up, but visiting the seat of power for the Separatists did kind of check that box.
Sure, it filled the Separatist-sized hole, even if we didn't know any of the actual characters.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see them have to, like, grow outside of, like, their ingrained political ideologies. I feel like I want to show this to every, like, MAGA hat wearing person
there you go.
that I know that I don't speak to anymore.
Right. Well, also, this is another, kind of Clone Wars callback, even if you don't bring back a specific character, like when we were at the droid factory and we got the droid comedic relief again. Is the war over? Did we win?
I love that.
I love that so much.
I love the droids.
So again, it's a way to kind of call back to Clone Wars without being like, hey, look, this character is back. We're still kind of we're still kind of coming out of that Clone Wars era and going into the Empire era. The shards are still there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. All right. It's rate time. Time to put up or shut up.
4.5.
Wow. You really liked this one.
Very strong episode.
Okay.
I think it's it's the kind of filler episode I love. A filler episode that shows character growth, that prioritizes like putting them in positions that tell me more of the character, tell me more about the characters. I feel like I know more about Omega. I feel like I know more about Echo. I feel like I know more about Hunter. I feel like I feel like the bar feels more lived in, more more of a character on the show.
Totally.
I really enjoy it. The storyline with their mission with the Separatists, I thought was very, very strong, very effective. I really liked GS8 as a character on the show, as well as Senator Singh. Would love to see the both of them come back again. Very high on this episode, 4.5.
All right. I'm going to give this one a 3.8. I'm not
Ridiculous.
quite willing to get up there to a 4. Well, because I've given previous episode a 4 before that have like big, earth-shattering, plot twists or reveals or something. And like this was very solid. Don't get me wrong. That's why I wanted to give it above like a 3.5 or a 3.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't quite to the level of like a holy crap must see TV. Like had me on the edge of my seat the entire time.
Fair.
Yeah, but still very, very valued. Very, very necessary.
Absolutely. I'm down. I dig it. I dug it.
All right. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
To let people know, tune in Wednesday for the last part of our Disney bracketology. It's been a lot of fun. We're going to be doing showstoppers, bangers, and bops. I think there's going to be a lot of a cappella singing in this one. I think we're going to have a real grand old time. I doubt we'll get through the entire list because I think we're going to go off the rails. We got some big personalities that are going to be on that one with us. Also, once that's done, I think we're going to, because I'm liking the argument thing. So I haven't told you this yet, but I am going to challenge you to a debate, and you can bring your team and I will bring mine.
Oh boy.
And the debate topic, we'll have to flip a coin or something to see which side we end up on. Will be Star Wars, which we've been talking as we've been covering it on here.
Okay.
Versus Lord of the Rings.
How dare you make me choose?
I know.
So not fair. And
I know,
resent
right?
That.
I know.
Deeply.
That's why I did it.
How dare you?
I did it.
Maui
to tear
Jones.
apart your soul.
Maui Jones, how dare you make me, a bisexual person, choose a side on anything?
I know. No matter who wins, you lose.
I know.
But I think it'll be fun. It'll be all in good fun. But we'll debate the merits of it on a few different criteria. We will go over what that criteria will be. You can have 2 people on your team, so you have 3 people on your team, and each one of those people, you and your team members, will each have to argue one of the 3 categories that we will battle in, and we will have a couple people that will be voting on who is winning based on the arguments, not based on what they like more. And that's why we need to make sure we have really good impartial people. It's based on the arguments, who did a better job. So we'll have a little celebrity judge panel for that, and that's what we're going to do after we're done with our bracketology, because I'm liking the format of choosing violence. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Is that your quote that we're gonna put on your headstone? I like the format of choosing violence.
I like the format of choosing violence. Yes. A pacifist and non-violent activist, loves choosing violence when it comes to talking pop culture.
When it comes to words.
Though our violence is not actually violent.
No,
violence.
It's not. We love each other.
Yeah, we love each other, and it's all in good fun. But we'll have a really good time. I'm really looking forward to it. So be prepared. Once we go offline, we'll see who's doing what. So, all right, y'all, have a good night.